is Erik Katz. I've been dedicated to the hardware startup movement and movement for quite some time, and really have been very passionate for it. I appreciate Greg and the community building. I actually remember going to a hardware meetup many years ago in this kind of area. I don't know if you remember Jellyfish, the Jellyfish meetups. Anyway, my story is all about, we've been everything from, I was one of the founders of HardwareCon to now I'm actually focused on, as I mentioned, Circuit Launch, which is the first co-working startup, first co-working facility for hardware startups. So I'll go from there.
My name is Madlem, with a company called Rush Order. We do order fulfillment, call center, customer support, accounts receivable, all really boring stuff that hardware startups typically don't do themselves. So if you think about making a hardware product, having your contract manufacturer ship it to us, we have warehouses and resources all over the world actually to help distribute our clients' products, both direct to consumer and to retailers. I'm going to attempt to keep up with these guys tonight. I'm probably the only non-technical guy, I think, maybe on the panel. So our focus is mostly kind of after the product is made and after we've done all the hardware. I'll attempt to fill in kind of what happens after and how that equates to what we do at CES and what our clients do at CES. Quick plug for Greg. If you attended the best party at CES, which happened to be our party.
Yeah, you guys did amazing.
Greg did a great job on the sound system. So yeah, quick plug there.
So hi everyone, my name is Pifko. I'm with a company called Invent This. We are a consulting engineering firm specializing in IoT and connected devices. We do electrical engineering, we'll do PCB assembly, PCBA design, component selection, firmware, embedded software, moving up the stack into mobile apps. Of course, everybody's doing mobile apps. And also various different forms of wireless integration, whether local mesh, wide area, any of that. And we also do cloud-based development, whether it's passing the data back and forth or control panels or anything along those lines. And it's only a short hop. I have a long background in mobile computing, mobile apps, games, industrial aspect, hardware, software on mobile. It's kind of exciting to see what's going on in the connected device and IoT space.
Hi everyone, my name is Kane Hsieh. I work with RRE Ventures. If you see the tree kind of engraved in various places around the office, we are a hardware-focused venture capital fund, specifically focused on the seed stage in hardware, industrial automation, and manufacturing companies. My partner, Avidan, who is much louder and much carrier than he usually speaks at these panels, but he's out of town, and I was asked to fill in, and I'm very excited to see a lot of familiar faces here. Thanks again for saying what's up.
Kane, thanks so much for hosting us. Yeah. Give Kane a big round of applause. Thank you very much. All right, you guys. So, a lot of you guys went to CES, but I want to talk with you guys today. Why did you guys go to CES? What did you hope to accomplish there? And did you find that you were successful?
So, okay, check. So actually it's interesting. I think people go, why do you go to CES? I mean, it's one of those things, it's almost like the Super Bowl for startups. I mean, if you think about it, if you're in that realm of hardware startups, it's kind of become a mythical event where it's so huge, you hear about it for years. So it's one of those things, I don't know if it depends. If you are not trying to launch a product immediately or you don't have direct plans, there's a lot of reasons to go, but I also think there's probably a lot of people that go because I want to hear about the latest things. There's a little FOMO thing going on too.
Absolutely. So if you think about Rush Order's role in kind of the hardware startup and consumer electronics space, I mean, we're really a service provider. So you think, okay, we go to CES to find new clients, right? And I think, years ago that was probably true. I think for us, we're mostly focused on being highly productive with our time. We all like to talk about the hardware scene here in the Bay Area and San Francisco. We all know Hardware Massive has chapters all over the world, and it turns out roughly 25–30% of our clients are actually based outside of North America. So what better place are you going to get a chance to meet everybody you've ever wanted to meet face to face? And so the funny thing too about our experience there, why we go, and I mentioned this to Greg, was I actually didn't spend a lot of time walking the show floor. Like it's mostly meeting. We throw the best party at CES, meeting, and somewhere in the middle we definitely squeeze in some time to go walk around Eureka Park and whatever else is going on and try to catch as much as we can. And so I think it's twofold for us. One is really about having highly targeted, focused meetings that drive business results for us and our clients, hopefully. We do the party mostly because it's really about, maybe there's still some people that obviously don't know who we are, and we want to go drive some awareness, and we really want to be known as the guys in this space that really help hardware startups to that next stage. And that helps us, right? It's a lot of fun. We invite all of our closest friends, clients, partners, etc. for hopefully a good event that it's kind of the CES behind the CES, I guess, that really helps drive some of that awareness with our target market. And so I think it's kind of a barbell approach, sort of awareness on one end and then highly targeted and focused on the other. And then somewhere in between, you want to walk the show floor to see what's going on, what's new, what's new in AI or smart home, or I'll tell you what, connected toys, which we'll talk more about, is one of the hottest categories right now we're seeing that nobody wants to talk about because it's not smart home or AI or autonomous vehicles or whatever. But that's, you do get some kind of that trend knowledge, sort of the finger on the pulse as well.
I went for the hardware master party. That was it. No, it was a good party. You're getting that theme already. No, so CES is interesting. We went for a couple reasons. First and foremost, we have several customers who were not launching there, but they were establishing connections, and we wanted to support them and help put them together with partners who are going to help grow their business in one way or another. We have a smartwatch manufacturer for kids, sneaker for kids. We have a construction helmet, which isn't exactly dead center of a consumer electronics show, but they still found a lot of good contacts there. So that was one reason, was support them. We did go to meet potential new customers as well for what we're doing. This is a target-rich environment for companies that have a need for somebody like us. Generally speaking, I view CES as a good place to do business and a terrible place to launch a product. And just awful. I actually got in the way of a couple product launches over the years that people were trying to do, because not only do you have the problem of differentiating from all of the other things that are out there, you also have an extremely jaded media that is loath to believe anything you say. And so if you can launch your product somewhere else, then you're going to have a much higher chance of succeeding. We generally found that to be true here, and that's in summary why I went to CES.
Some context for why we go to CES. If you think about the venture capital industry at large, statistically you spend most of the year watching companies that you can somehow found. And so between January and December, it's a psychological challenge for us, but especially for the entrepreneurs. And with CES for us, specifically Eureka Park, is just a shot in the arm. This super energetic, sometimes misguided, sometimes we're often pretty wacky, but just a raw enthusiasm for developing new products, developing hardware, or even a little bit of mad science. And that, starting the year off with Eureka Park, is the right way for us, hopefully for you, to just get super amped up on what people are working on, to see all the optimism from all the different countries, people of all ages, working on really incredible new things. And so for us, Eureka Park is really central and important. And then we'll pop by Central just to see the Titans kind of slug it out. And from an industry perspective, what's compelling there is you can kind of ask around. And you have to ask the right questions, because a lot of people manning the booths in the Central Park are from the sales and marketing. But to kind of figure out where the emphasis is in the technologies they're pushing, or even the chips they're providing. You ask them what new dev kits are coming out. By them I mean the Qualcomms and the Intels. You ask them what dev kits are coming out that year. You can kind of get a proxy for what technologies they're hoping to back, or they're betting on, and get a sense of what components will become cheaper. So for instance, this year a lot of MBIoT, which is the carrier-supported low bandwidth, low power network, there's a lot more development around that, and that's exciting for anyone if you're working in connected hardware, because suddenly you'll be able to get really low cost cellular connectivity. And stuff like that, if you ask the right tactical questions in the central hall, you can kind of get a good sense for what the year is going to be coming up.
that brings me up to another question. What did you guys really think were the overarching trends in this year's CES? And was there anything specific that you found inspirational in this?
I'll start to save Erik from having to go first every time. So Steve Sinofsky, the partner at Andreessen Horowitz and the former president of Microsoft Windows, actually wrote a fantastic piece, which I highly suggest you all read. I'm going to crib some of his points, so I want to give him credit up front, but he made a very compelling point, which I didn't realize in retrospect, which was that for the first time, the kind of hegemony of Apple's app interface to interact with connected devices was broken because the focus this year was voice interaction, primarily mediated through Google or Alexa, with Siri a distant third. And so I hadn't realized that until I read Steve Sinofsky's piece, and that's actually pretty fascinating to think about, which is suddenly like we have other options for interacting with systems, and for the first time it's one that Apple doesn't dominate.
What were some of the themes? So there's been a lot of talk about audio and voice interfaces. I would interpret it this way. There's a time to go to war, and there's a time to make peace. Right? There are a lot of people in this room who are doing some really advanced stuff. And there's lots of different ways around the world and new technologies of we're going to make the best thing possible and forget everyone else. We're not going to comply with a standard or anything. We're going to go out and make the best things, so the best voice interface, the best audio, the best home network. Like just never mind just cables plugging into all the phones, right? I mean, all sorts of different ways of moving the ball forward because that's what needs to happen to push the thing forward. At some point, there comes a time when you recognize that the need to partner with your previous competitors is more important than differentiating on some aspect of what you're doing. And so the push towards, sort of the Alexa, the Google Voice, I think that it bodes well for the entire class of products that are supported by those technologies because they can all move forward. This is when the rising tide floats all boats. Beforehand, it was a bunch of lakes, right, that weren't all working together. So now I see that this is not just specifically to that market, it's something that we can all learn. And it's difficult. There's no big red flag that says, all right, guess what? It's time to start working with your competitors / enemies. So I think that was a good lesson to draw from CES this year.
Again, I think being the business guy, not a technology guy, for me it's all about from one CES to the next. I think for me what I see that has changed and in the course of my conversations. And I think what's really changed is if you go back a few years, we would have a meeting at a booth, or we'd talk to somebody at a booth, or they'd come to the party, or wherever you meet somebody at CES, you have a million different conversations, and you're talking to hardware startups in January, and I swear we joke about this internally. We come back from CES, and our team will say, tell me about all the companies that are launching in April, that are going to ship in April. And the answer is everybody I talked to. It was like April. And I think part of that was going back to a little bit of the sort of gold rush that happened in the hardware startup space a few years ago, versus now, and when I have conversations at CES, the conversations are much more metered, they're much more realistic. I used to work at Gartner, kind of a really boring company that would produce research, right, about emerging trends in IT and technology. And if you've ever seen the Gartner hype cycle, you think about a few years ago in the hardware startup space, all these new sensors, the IoT, the smart home, wearables, all these cool things we're going to get, how exciting it all was, and all the money rushing in. And when I would go down an aisle at CES and talk to 3 different smart water bottle companies, I would start to freak out a little bit. It's like, maybe there is going to be one that's going to be the next cool thing, but probably not all 3 of you, and certainly not all 10 of you. And so I think we're now in a place where, in Gartner parlance, we talk about in the hype cycle the trough of disillusionment. And I think that really happened in the last year or two, where we're now seeing some of these technologies now are real. And there's maybe less of a gold rush feeling and less money rolling in, but good ideas are still being funded. And these are founders now who've kind of been through the last few years, have a little bit more of a realistic expectation of what to expect. And I think that's just been interesting. I think some people have been frustrated by the fact that maybe some of the funding in hardware is not as accessible as it used to be. But at the same time, I view it as a good thing. We've kind of washed out some of the madness, and now we're in a place where if you really have a good idea, you can rise above the noise. We talk about maybe where some of those places investments are, where those investments are happening, what types of products. But I think that's been the big difference.
That's great, Danny. You stole a little bit of my thunder there, just because, no, it's actually a really great point that I wanted to make, and it is like the technology adoption cycle. I think CES is a great place to really kind of see trends, and you can see markets, and it's fascinating because every major technology seems to follow this curve. And there's a little bit of an interest, like nobody knows about it, then everybody knows about it, then it's crazy, then there's kind of the crash. But I think, you know, when you look at that and it's such a large place, you can also see where the big companies are going. You kind of get in the mindset of a big company. They want to be hushed until that point, and that's their idea. That's what people have said. For startups, it's probably a terrible place to launch products, to get above the noise, because above Sony and LG. But really, it's fascinating. I think it's almost, what's interesting to me is almost like the convergence of everything. So if you think about big companies and say, what is your product, like a Panasonic or a Sony, and it's like everything. You see cars, you see TVs, I mean, you see every part, and all of it is converging into similar technologies. And so I think that's a fascinating piece, like how are the companies themselves creating differentiation? I think it's different for startups. You have to stay focused. You go, what is the problem? That's kind of beaten it to us, but if you're a massive company, they just are starting to go into all their different markets. So it's really interesting. And the other thing is just where you see kind of where we were a few years ago with 3D printer companies. You don't see that many of them now. Well, I saw tons of smart home. That seems to be coming of age. So you see a few of these, and of course the Alexa speaker. So I don't think there's going to be that many speakers in the future, but it's all tying back to a few.
Well, I think that's amazing. I hope so. I hope there's room for our speakers personally. I also think, there's this huge trend in IoT, obviously, and with interconnected and intelligent devices, the smart home is huge. Obviously, there's a huge battle going on this year, I think, between Alexa and Google Assistant. You couldn't travel more than, 50 feet at any point of downtown Las Vegas without seeing the giant, transpiring billboards of Google Assistant, how may I assist you? What do you guys think about the future of IoT specifically and of interconnected devices? Do you feel that in the future all appliances and all devices will have Wi-Fi connectivity?
So I want to answer that with kind of an interesting perspective I saw. So I noticed a lot of technologists, we all talk about how much we love this connected home, but I talk about people who are in the semiconductor space, they're like, I'll never put an Alexa speaker in my home. I'll never put because they don't want to, I have one of, people have said to me, I have one on my desk that's for free and I'll never put it in. So I've heard more of that. So that's the interesting story behind it, right? So I think with the connected home, and IoT is one of those things that are huge, but as long as there's big question marks of security and privacy, and those are, I think, the overshadowing, that's going to overshadow IoT adoption. Because at the end of the day, when there is a major technology crash, so to speak, in terms of the reduction of the hype cycle, it's really because user adoption, right? And so we have a great filter bubble here in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, and people are willing to adopt technology, but if people who don't understand the technology think the speaker's always listening to me, Google's getting inside my brain, good luck selling that to mainstream America and the world.
Yeah, so yes and no. So I like it's important when you're starting something up or you're creating a product to not solve the 50th most important problem, right? It's important to focus on the problems that people are actually having. Electric bikes instead of internal combustion bikes, I see a huge future for because it solves power and cost and pollution and all sorts of things like that. There were a lot of kitchen gadgets here that solve what I thought were like way down the list of things that problems people are facing in the kitchen, right? But once you find that thing that scratches a real itch, then it works, right? I was actually there was a retail technology event 4 months ago, something like that, and I'm going to steal her line. This one woman was up there saying, Facebook, they know everything about you. They know this, they know that, but I get to speak to my friends around the world, so it's totally worth it, right? And she went on and listed about 4 or 5 things that were basically talking about privacy and security, but it's totally worth it, right? And then this and that, so it's totally worth it. So security and privacy, I think, are going to fade into the background because, number one, security will be solved over time, but The only way to beat that is to come up with the main itch, the main problem, the main thing that you're trying to solve. An actual health problem, an actual problem in productivity. If you're going after the industrial market space, something that offers real ROI, then that's the impetus to put people into solving the security problem, solving the privacy problem or trade-off in this case. So yes and no, it is something to be talked about, but I think the more important issue is it doing something that it says it's going to do? Is it valuable in terms of money or personal data?
I would just echo that entirely. I mean, I think for me, you never would have been able to convince me to wear a watch on my wrist that tracks everywhere I go in the world via GPS. But as soon as it had GPS and an altimeter, and guess what? I like to hike and trail run. I don't look like it. That all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I will put up with that. A little bit of invasion of privacy, right? So it's funny how quickly I think the barriers drop as soon as there's that real productive kind of killer use case that you think, okay, I'm willing to live with whatever that other sacrifice is in terms of security and privacy and whatnot. But yeah, once those things happen, then yeah, maybe someday we'll have a connected fridge or whatever it is. But right now, not yet.
So a friend of mine who is an engineer at a place I realize I can't name by name because it probably get him in trouble, but it's a family-friendly company that operates a lot of technology behind the scenes, and kids and parents both love it. But to paraphrase what he said, basically, as long as the utility we provide outpaces our creepiness, we're okay. Which is, I think, the way of saying. And so I think those concerns exist, but I think we're trading on utility. And on the utility side of that, I think currently, you talk about Wi-Fi and everything. Wi-Fi is a garbage way to interface with IoT devices. 2.4 and 5.0 are totally slammed. Even on the street, you can hit like a dozen access points. They're all misconfigured. It's unreliable. Bluetooth is worse. And so going back to what I mentioned in the beginning, the new specs like the IoT, kind of all these seriously low power, low bandwidth spectrum backed by the carriers who are all kind of looking in the future and seeing this out the future and trying to figure out how they can get a cut of that. Kind of the SLA and the reliability baked into connectivity is what I think will be the tipping point. So that's what we're waiting for. And most of our companies are actually industrial because for them, the switching cost is a line item. They just plug it into their P&L, the number turns out black at the bottom, they'll go, right? But it's different selling to a consumer, right? Where we have a rational attachment to, is my lock going to run out of batteries? Even though you can totally predict and manage that power consumption, sometimes it's not even worth thinking about it, right? And so you have these delays in adoption. And so what we're really waiting for is breakthroughs in connectivity, hopefully beyond Wi-Fi, and then with that, the power issues, go away a little bit.
Absolutely. So I found that over the years, CES is this beautiful place for synchronicity and chance occurrences. As much as we plan meetings and we schedule our time and work to manage that time to the best of our abilities, there's always something that surprises me, or a chance meeting or a chance encounter with somebody that wouldn't have normally happened or wasn't pre-planned. I don't know if any of you experienced that this year, but if you did, would you guys care to talk about something that surprised you or, along those lines?
Well, I just had to make a comment from the awesome party that was going on. I felt like we were in Las Vegas and we could have had the party in San Francisco and it had more familiar faces there. So that was funny. I think CES is a great place to meet folks, right? And a lot of people set up meetings, and I know we did. A lot of times it's a great place to take those connections and relationships even off-site. So even though you're much further away, you are building relationships with folks that you already are already connected with, and so that synchronicity is there. And then you run into new things and new products and new ideas all the time, which are great.
That happened to us at Dana's amazing
Yeah.
hotel room party.
Yeah.
Which I will be doing the sound for, hopefully, for many years to come.
I should say too, it was Hardware Massive, it was PRG, it was a couple other co-sponsors as well. Go next. I think it's really important to go into CES with a really mindful, thoughtful plan about what you're going to do. And again, I think that answer is different for everybody. Whether it's I really need to meet retail buyers, I'm really trying to draw on press. I have no idea who my buyer is yet. We just launched this thing. We've done direct to consumer, but we don't know what the next stage is. And so, we're going to kind of join Indiegogo space or whoever and try to just go meet people and see what comes next. But a along the way, in the course of those thoughtful plans, serendipity just happens. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've been standing at someone's booth, turn over, and look over at the other booth next to me, and there's somebody I haven't seen in 5 years, right? And that happens not just at booths, but at the parties and also on the tram. You run into an old client from 4 years ago, and old contact or whatever, and sure enough, you're looking for that hire, or you're looking for that next client or connection or customer or whatever it is. So yeah, maybe not a specific example, but too many to actually mention.
Yeah, there was actually one in particular. So there was a PR person who worked at our last company, and she went off to somewhere else, and we just thought, hey, we'll go say hi and talk with them, and make the contacts that we were talking about. And it turns out she's working at this other company. We go up to the suite, and we thought that we were just going to say hi, have a couple crackers and leave. Right? She works for a company called 22. They do machine learning around computer vision. I know it's not a hardware focused startup, but this was cool, right? And I think it's turned, just based on this alone, I think machine learning has turned the corner from kind of interesting to functional. A couple examples. They had cameras all over the room demonstrating various different things. So this company had something where there was one camera where it showed a railing. The suite had a railing, it was like just down 2 or 3 feet. But they labeled this area in the machine learning system as dangerous. And whenever somebody came by, on the monitor for that camera, it started screaming danger, danger, danger. And so you could use that same, it was all machine learning, so you could use that same learning system to trigger a warning, a flag, someone coming down to check things out, maybe a security guard being flagged, a little wall going up, like all sorts of things, just based on recognizing that someone's in the area. There was another demo they had running, same basic engine, which recognized aggressive poses. Right? So you just get yourself, you're just standing, it's just a camera like this, totally dead simple camera, and you get into this position and it starts flashing danger, danger. So you could put that into retail outlets in some of the more unsavory parts of a city. You could put it into areas where you expect hostile people. You could put it into women's shelters. You could put it into all sorts of things, and it's just a regular camera and a regular computer sitting in the background doing some amazing things to pick things out. There were lots of other demos. They had something like Amazon Go where it had a bunch of objects on the table, and you pick it up, and it puts the item onto your shopping list with a dollar value. So just some amazing stuff around machine learning that I think is going to be incredibly valuable, huge, and interesting. And we had no idea that's what we were going to see that in.
Rather than specific incidents, the really cool thing for me about CES and serendipity is every year you can see certain startups graduate to the next level of legitness. And so this year, Ring Doorbell was in, which is one of our businesses. Ring Doorbell was in Central Hall. It's awesome, big booth, crazy demos, instrumentation products, professional team, and everything. And a few years ago, they were manning a folding table in Erik Park, which was a small, kind of scrubby startup area. And so seeing the progress of companies like that is, again, going back to the inspiring part of CES, the most fun and serendipitous.
I think that's great. Can I just say one more thing about that too, that if you do go to CES and you do present in the future, don't be bummed if it doesn't seem like what you're doing is all that glitzy. It may be a long burn, right? Keep up hope that what you're doing is going to work out. You may end up in a folding table one year and get big the other. And likewise, DJI, the big drone company, and several other drone companies had booths that were the same size. And to someone just walking the halls who didn't really know what was going on, they looked like equivalent companies. DJI is crushing everyone around them, right? So you can't just judge based on the booth how successful you're being or how successful one of the companies you're visiting is.
I noticed this growth in a company, Cocoon Camp. On the panel we had last year, Pavan, I believe his name is, was one of the founders of Cocoon Camp. And they were in the early Eureka Hall, I think 3 years ago when I went. And this year, I saw them in the North Hall, and they had a much bigger booth, more professional team, and I was really proud of them. I'd love to see people in the hardware ecosystem start to succeed. Is there any product or technology that you guys saw this year and you're like, you know what, that's a game changer, or like, that just really surprised me, or that really caught my eye and it's something that was brand new? I mean, for me, I saw this like holographic display system that it looked like a purple cow. Everyone was standing around this thing, and you know, it displayed like pretty much almost like a holographic projection using these like rotary spinning things. I'm like, I've got to get that for my booth because everyone is going to stare at that. What did you guys see that kind of, you know, struck you, or like really is a game changer, make the world better, or you know, you think it's going to really be a trend?
So it's funny, all the really exciting bleeding edge stuff is usually in your face in the central hall and everyone gets to see it. I really like this thing that I found in the corner of Erik Park. All it is it's a tape measure with a little button and an OLED screen, and when you measure, it just saves your measurements, so you have a little running list of measurements. And that was my favorite product because it works and it solves a problem that I clearly have, and I don't have to think too hard about it. Everything else, I'm sure you've seen the press coverage of, but I think that one was the one I found that I hadn't seen anywhere else.
I tend to default to practicality as well. Like I think about in the lens of like how many of these can I ship? You know, what's the reality? And I'm excited. There's some, for whatever reason too, like I mentioned, like, you know, talking to like 3 smart water bottle companies or something like that. But like these things kind of come in waves. But one that I'm excited about, and as a father to a daughter, is some of these new technologies around wearable devices or attachments to cell phone cases or other things that can alert your network when you're in trouble, or some of these things. And I think this idea has been around for a long time. But actually seeing some of these things demoed and being convinced that actually, wow, I think we're on the precipice of actually this technology really working in real time. Marrying it with like real-time 911 dispatching, or simply alerting, you know, your friends, family, whatever. I think, you know, that was one that I thought, like, okay, this is cool and meaningful and interesting. I think that's kind of that Gartner hype cycle plateau of productivity, where it's like this works and there's real value and that's a use case. And what parent isn't going to buy that for their college-age kid, or especially daughter, but college-age kid going on to college, or whatever it may be.
I love that. In Erik Park, did you see the taser one? They even had one that looked like Hello Kitty. And, you know, this was a cell phone case that, you know, I was like, is that somebody, like, you know, is somebody getting tasered right now? Because I heard that clicking noise. And sure enough, you know, it's a pink Hello Kitty iPhone holder that doubles, and Hello Kitty will tase you if you get too close. So, and it had a nice safety mechanism, too. That was one thing I found in the back corner of Erik Park, and I was, you know, surprised by that.
Product liability, might be a little nervous to ship those, but I like the idea.
Actually, real fast, the reason I brought up the little tape measure thing is we always, as a venture investor, we love it when people try to raise venture funding because it makes our job easier, but we always try to carve out venture funding, which is venture capital is basically a rocket. Like rockets either make it to space or they blow up somewhere in the middle. Like there's no intermediary step, but you can build a pretty successful company slowly and sometimes pretty painfully, but more sustainably by building small increments. And especially if you have a product where you're very passionate about it and you know, you have a small passionate fan base, you can sell them profitably. You manufacture and work with partners like these wonderful panelists, and you can create an awesome lifestyle doing that. And so for those of you thinking about funding or specific venture capital funding, like that is something that's unique. Actually, I see Sam in the corner, who's a friend and a regular here. He's worked over the past year shipping an amazing little remote product, basically just by hand, and it's pretty awesome. And he's got his fulfillment beard that he's ready to shave once he finishes.
Next week.
Yeah. So there you go, like, successful product and business.
That's great hearing from you. I appreciate that. There's lots of things. But I think in terms of just real quick, most interesting stuff that I think there's practical side, and then there's the stories the big companies are selling. They have these cars that Panasonic was trying to talk about, where there are screens on the ceiling, screens inside. They're not really vehicles. It's like it's like hardware is merging with automotive. And so it's almost like you're now going to live in your cell phone, and your cell phone will transport you wherever you want to go with touch screens inside everywhere. So, you know, that's the story they're saying. We'll see where it goes.
You know, I also also saw that trend that you're talking about with a LiDAR company. Obviously, there was a whole lot of automated driving this year. I think more so than I ever saw at CES. And I saw one of this LiDAR company, and they brought this beautiful car designed by a company named Pifko. And they put this car in their LiDAR company's beautiful booth. But everyone who came to the booth had questions about the car, and nobody really had questions about their LiDAR. So I think also in booth design, and we have to keep away from things that might be too distracting, because they'd say, well, you know, this is all about our LiDAR. We'd be like, well, how fast does the car go? You know? So I think that might have, you know, worked against them a little bit. In terms of that, personally, sadly, when we went to go see some of the larger companies like Samsung Village and Sony, there happened to be this amazing blackout that transpired in the North Hall during that time. So I didn't get to see some of the real companies that I like, the really big, you know, players in the game. Were there any booths that their design or something just like stuck out so monumentally this year that was like noteworthy to give people thoughts about, you know, how they might go into designing something or how they would want to convey the message?
I think that's the reason they do it. The question you're asking now is the reason companies spend insane amounts of money. And I would also caution companies and startups, you have to figure out what's your ROI on this. You're going to go spend a lot of money. What do you expect to get out? I mean, the practical and tactical side of going to CES is very much on that. But this is a weird place where it's like you could spend, you know, $20 million building a booth, and they're not going to ask because it's about measuring who's bigger and more successful. And like you said, or somebody said, you can't measure a company's success by their booth. So we saw some outrageous booths. We saw an RV with a helicopter on it. You know, that was cool. I like that. I mean, you just saw stuff that you would never expect. I saw a speaker, 7,000 watt speaker, that we were going to put that in your car. But they were having a cherry picker to pull it out, which was crazy. So you go there to see stuff you wouldn't expect to see. And these booths are just phenomenal how big someone like LG or Sony really, they just want to do it. They have that kind of money to do it. It's really phenomenal.
How many of you guys just go to CES for the massage chairs? No, just kidding. I really do. I take at least one day to go try out the newest massage chair technology and get off my feet.
That's my new technique for making it all the way through. I go 1 3/4 days, massage, keep on going for another couple days. No, so I agree with you. I think that's mostly what they're doing with the big booths.
But that being said, a lot of you guys have been to CES already. You guys are veterans of CES. I'm guessing you've all gone multiple years. This is my 3rd year. I'm guessing if we went down here, we could say how many years they've been to CES. What are some tips? You know, what advice would you give to people here who haven't actually been to CES before? How would they best prepare for this? What advice would you guys have of, you know, how to conquer it, you know, how to really get what you want out of it?
I think, you know, the best thing is sometimes just to survey it. You know, if you've never been there before, don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to see everything. Just say, I'm just going to walk the floor. And you just say, I'm going to walk the floor and realize that is a couple days alone. And so if you just say, all I'm going to do is walk the floor to see it, that's amazing. Because it will take you hours to go from one end of the hall to the other, not really even stopping. So that's how big it is. And I think sometimes that's just part of the seeing CES in person.
I definitely get comfortable Dr. Scholl's insoles for my shoes. That definitely helps.
Comfortable shoes, for sure.
Yeah.
I would echo Erik's comments. If you haven't been before and you're going for the first time, just walk and learn. I think that's incredibly valuable. Unless you don't have that luxury, you really got to do some business or something. But I mentioned earlier, like, I go with the focus. Is it press? Is it buyers? Is it technology partners? You know, what is it that you're really after? What do you want to get out of it? And you should be able to answer that question pretty clearly. I think one thing, like piece of advice that I always find fun walking around Eureka Park is I'll go up to a booth and say, wow, what do you guys do? And somebody will talk to me for 5 minutes, and I'll walk away, and I'll turn to somebody and be like, no idea. And again, I'm not the technologist on the panel or in the room, but eventually that's your market, right? Like, you know, we're headquartered in Gilroy, California, like, and someday you're probably going to sell people in Oklahoma too. Like, that's how hardware startups present their demos and their booths is incredibly intriguing to me. Some do it so extremely well, you walk up and you're just instantly like, wow, this is killer. Like, I get it, right? I mean, like, a hologram thing, of course, like maybe that's an easy example, right, where it's easy to demo. some products are not as easy to demo, but how creative you get and how well you can articulate in 10 or 30 seconds or whatever it is as quickly as possible what it is your product does and what the value of it is, I think is a lot of fun to watch.
I think hiring exceptionally qualified and talented people to work at your booth, if you're not manning your booth yourself as a startup booth, let's say Eureka Village, for instance. I mean, I bet a few different Eureka Village startups that, you know, they obviously hired somebody to work their booth, but this was like a Las Vegas trade show assistant that didn't really understand their product, their mission, and wasn't able to clearly explain it. But would be like, okay, you can take a card with somebody who might be able to. I'd highly suggest if you're a startup, unless you're going to work this booth yourself and be able to show and convey your drive and your passion there, find somebody else who will do a good job of that and supports your vision.
Even if you want to do it yourself, be careful. Maybe that's not your skill set. I mean, to draw a parallel, like I think you guys have invested in Partner, right? As an example, the first time I met Zach Sapala, like 30 seconds in, I'm like, I'm not a technologist. This is an IoT platform play, and I get it, right? Like it made perfect sense. Versus a pure consumer product that should be easy to get, and I have a founder in front of me who's trying to explain whatever it is that's so wonderful about it, but that's not a reason I'm going to go buy it online or go to Best Buy and buy it. And again, that's what CES is really about. Like that's the stage where you should be thinking about go to market, not just here's why the technology is cool and here's why this chip is special. And yeah, that should be part of the story at some point. Not the primary focus.
So I agree. Going in with a couple different areas you can focus on, you know, like your top 1, 2, or 3 needs, you know, your few people that you need to meet, a couple companies that you really want to meet, sort of standard networking stuff, trying to get introductions to the people who are behind the scenes, because you're not always going to find the guy that you want or the woman that you want who's actually at the booth. The only way you're going to do it is by networking your way into it. So I think that's a good thing. And it's funny because you were talking about hiring the right people for the booth. I've been to a lot of shows in Vegas, you know, CES, Comdex, and various other shows. I was really happy to see that there were very, very few spandex-clad booth babes. Right? It was fantastic. There were still a couple, but for the most part, they were gone. And I think that's a really big step forward. For the primary reason, of course, being you can do everything else in the booth also. They don't need to do that. There's lots of other, there's no reason to have that. And also from a business perspective, if you get a bunch of people, a bunch of women in spandex scanning badges, those aren't good leads. Right? So you get 10,000 terrible leads. You wasted your money. It's not a good. It's not a good approach, and it needs to die.
I think the question was tips for CES.
Yeah.
And going back to my original point, staying optimistic, right? Like the people working those booths are standing up 12 hours a day, sometimes for 4 straight days. A lot of them are jet lagged to hell. They're trying their hardest to pitch their product or sell you their vision. And for visiting, it can get old if you let it, but just kind of staying cognizant, realizing that like people are here because they're excited and want to be there. And even though sometimes it's not exactly what you expect, or sometimes it's even just a little off from what they're trying to pitch. It's all exciting, and honestly, staying hydrated. Those are 2 points.
Do you guys, sorry, can I sit there for a second? This is more of a question. There were a bunch of companies offering tours of CES where there were like guys going around with little flags, and they were clearly focused on a particular subject or topic. Did those work? Did anyone hear about whether or not that was successful? Did you take a tour? Did you like them?
They stopped by our booth, and we got some media from that, and we got some interesting leads. Specifically, we're in the energy space, so I don't actually know where they came from or why they picked us, but it was welcome.
So could you tell, was it an energy tour or a tour of energy geeks?
I think it had to do with some of the accelerators that we worked with in the Bay, but they weren't branded. They weren't the guy leading the tour who had us talk about our company, but he wasn't branded anything other than Eureka Park. Yeah, I still don't know.
Yeah, it's potentially a good idea if it works, if it has themes, if it's not too expensive.
I was going to say, like, for those, typically not really beneficial for the people that have booths, but it's very beneficial for those. I mean, obviously, as you guys know, CES is huge. It's about 2.6 million square feet. That's what So it's really great for individual people that have a target market or niche that they want to go towards. And so for them, it's a nice way to bypass stuff that's not as relevant for them.
You know, and I've seen those, a couple of them, but actually I've more noticed the Bay Area. I call it innovation tourism, and we've seen that. There's a lot of groups from all over the world. They want to tour the Bay Area. So I think that's probably connected to that, because especially in other countries, they're very popular with trying to come and get exposure to Silicon Valley, and now I think it's kind of going to the CES. So there's a lot of innovation tourism that's going on.
All right, thank you guys so much. We're gonna open this up for some questions and answers. Thank you guys, it's been a pleasure to sit on this wonderful panel. All you guys are amazing and work so hard to help startups, whether it's your Circuit Launch or Rush Order, Inventus, or investing, obviously, in this space. We need a lot more people like you doing those things. Is there, like, you guys go to CES and you're looking for something, you know, all of you guys are looking for things. What is it, you know, that you were really looking for individually this year, and did you find it? Last question.
All right, I guess I'm starting. So we actually go specifically not to look for deals, because the reality is all the people working on cool stuff you'll meet in the Bay Area literally at some point anyways. It's just for the energy. Eureka Park, like I feel like everyone, if they have the chance, should walk it once. It's a great way to start the year. It's a great way to see what people are working on, and honestly, keeps you humble. And I think that's important to see how things start, and then you also see on the other end of the scale where companies can go, and you see all the hard work, and you see people eating crappy sandwiches in the corner, like sleeping behind the booth, and all the work that goes into it. So that's what I go for.
So I wanted our companies that we support to be successful, and I think they were. I think they all found either business partners. Let's see. So there were a couple that found business partners. There were a couple of big customers for our IoT company that are potentially big opportunities for them. The Consumer Watch did very well getting the word out there. So that was my primary focus. And then just tightening up relationships with other people that we know or that come from our countries. You know, much of our company is based in France, and so we spoke with a lot of, that was one mechanism we used to touch base with those people. So generally tightening relationships, and yes, that was successful.
Sorry to grab this back real fast. I want to clarify. I mean, it keeps investors humble, where it's easy to get caught up in FOMO of early stage or later stage investing. I know the entrepreneurs are already cracking it out.
Yeah, I think it's just a great way to kick off the year. I mean, we go in with a plan, we have some really productive meetings, we hope to get some business out of it, especially with those folks who don't normally get to see the Bay Area, who might be from Europe or China or wherever else. But it's just a great way to kick off the year, and that's the reason why we do our party together with Hardware Massive, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's a way to celebrate, and say, all right, last year was done, and for us, we get to kind of survive the holiday season with all the holiday shipping and stuff, which is a nice way to kind of start the next year. So I think that just kind of to your point too, there's a fun element to it as well. That's important.
There's definitely a fun element, and I think for us, it's really about strengthening a lot of relationships you already have. But the other interesting thing, we get to meet other people in these companies that aren't local. So that's the other point that I've also heard, that you bring these connections that you already have here locally, but these companies are large, and a lot of companies are not just based in the Bay Area, so you get to meet folks from other parts of the company. So that's a really great piece as well.
Nice. Thank you guys so much again. Do we have any questions? All right. One big round of applause for all information. Okay, we'll open this up to questions. Yes.
It's more for Donna and the gentleman from RRE Ventures. I didn't get your name, sorry. Okay. I don't know if you deliberately avoided or not. There was a whole trend of AR, VR this year. There were a couple of big announcements, and that's huge for the hardware industry. With Daniel saying that there's more machine learning, and he was excited about it. Where do you see the future for it? And with your background in Gartner, all the speculations that they've done in this space, do you think there's room for small startup, or is it left to big guys and everybody else should focus on content?
I think there's definitely room for startups, and I think there's room for acquisition there, right? I mean, even in our own warehouse, like if you think, I'm here talking about CES, but internally we think about the industrial applications of AR and VR, in particular like AR. If you think about a massive cavernous warehouse with lots of stuff piled higher than the ceiling of this, we're talking about drones flying around and taking inventory and lots of cool stuff like that. I think that is absolutely going to happen, and I think for a company of our size, like we're not that big. We're sort of in this kind of mid-sized kind of category, and thinking about robotics in our warehouse is important, but fully automating and having an articulating arm going off and grabbing something off the shelf and putting it on a robot and carrying it over the lines, like that's a long way off for a lot of companies not named Amazon, right? And maybe even for Amazon. So for us, I think there's a lot of really just practical use cases where somebody walks over to the shelf, grabs an item, their glasses scan the barcode, they put it on a little robot, goes over the line, goes to another guy with glasses, and sees, okay, this is the right product, right thing in the box. So yeah, I think there's tons of opportunity. I don't think there's any huge player that's going to call us tomorrow to say, we have a solution for it.
But I got a startup to connect into. But no, I see it, not to jump in on this, but I see a lot of hardware, and AR, VR is a very exciting time. I think it is actually a time for startups, right? It's kind of reached where Google tried it, did Google Glass, and now I see a lot of other more practical applications in the AR space. So actually, I think it's a great time for startups.
So it's not a bubble for hardware space?
No, I think every technology, there's just a hype cycle, and then there's a realization. And I think we went to the hype cycle, and I think now it's getting to the realization. So I think we're right there. We're right in a very, even more exciting time where the realization is there.
I would say from an investment perspective, if you can pitch a compelling application or solution, that's always an easier pitch than, if you call yourself an AR/VR company, it's like calling yourself a Wi-Fi company or a display company. Like fundamentally, AR/VR is a display technology, and so pitching a solution is always an easier and more compelling pitch than pitching a technology. So we have one company in our portfolio that uses AR, but they are fundamentally a CNC company that happens to use AR to solve a high-value problem. And I think if you can structure your pitch like that, it sticks better. Especially because, as you said, there's probably a lot of noise these days.
Real quick, I just don't know where the play is in consumer versus enterprise and industrial. Like I see very clear straight lines to industrial and enterprise applications. I haven't seen it personally for consumer, but I'm also not the best expert.
I'm sorry, can I jump in with one thing? Too many people are dying because they're looking at their phones while they're driving cars. Right? Either killing themselves or they're killing people around, and it's a UI problem, it's a UX problem. Cars have a terrible interface for working with, speaking to other people, communicating with other people, doing the things that people clearly want to do in their cars, but have to use their phone because the car interface sucks, right? In AR, in the AR, general AR space, specific applications, in the Panasonic booth, there was one display, and it's probably several years out before it actually hits market. But you sit in the car and it's actually effectively an AR display in front of you. And a lot of the activity that does go on here, because frankly we wanted to speak to other people, we wanted to communicate with other people, shouldn't be going on the thing in your hand. It should be going on in front of you, and it should be in a way that allows it to happen, but allows it to happen in a way that's going to be safe. And so that particular application of AR, I think, I hope it happens. I'm ever hopeful about the automotive space, and I think that's an excellent use of AR that can both save lives and also be good for people driving cars.
Don't you think a self-driving car solves that problem?
Different solutions, same problem. Not everyone drives a BMW 7 Series or a 3 Series. There are some Toyota Corollas out there. They're like vehicles all up and down the scale. There are lots of people who enjoy driving themselves and who will continue driving themselves. I think there's going to be people who will be the same, those who enjoy autonomous driving for a certain portion of their trip and actually driving for other parts of their trip, right? And so I don't think that human driving is completely going away. Yes, self-driving cars or autonomous modes solve that problem to some extent, but I don't see that going away for a very, very long time.
All right, I saw a question all the way in the back.
Yeah, near the pizza. Yeah, so I have an enigma from CES that I hope you guys can sort of enlighten me. So when I go to CES, I meet people that I've talked to over the internet or through video calls, and I already know their products quite well. But I go to CES to meet them in person and also to get a demo. That's like gold for me. So I'm so confused why founders go to CES and sometimes they have demos that are just like, or they don't quite work, or sometimes they just have shells. And I'm wondering if there's value in being at CES at that stage that I'm just not picking up on.
Sorry, I think it depends what stage you're at as a company, what your goals are. I mean, if you think hey, we're at stage, whatever it may be, and your goal is to say, look, we're real and we're here to raise money or whatever it might be, then that might be a perfectly valid reason to bring a kind of prototype or something that's half baked or whatever. I wouldn't take that into a meeting with Best Buy. I wouldn't take that into a lot of other contexts, but I'm sure there are contexts in which that makes a lot of sense.
That's interesting because for me it erodes trust basically right away. So I'm wondering if that's similar across your different perspectives or.
There are, especially more on the industrial side, there are companies that will sell capabilities or innovations that may not actually exist yet, and those things are built on a contractual basis. And so in those specific instances, it matters less. With regards to consumer products, I mean, I feel similarly about consumer products. Unless they're giving a clear date or explanation of the stage they're in and expected, unless they're specifically setting expectations, if they show up as not working, I actually feel similar to you.
I mean, I totally understand, of course, and I agree. I think for a startup to go to CES and actually showcase with a booth is a ton of money, and I wouldn't see why would you want to do that unless that product is ready for the market. Because I think that's the prime time. I mean, people say it's PR. I think there's a false hope a little bit that I just show my idea and then an investor like Kane's going, well, hell yeah, we'll give you $100,000 or give you $1 million. I think there's some false hopes there. False hopes around, and no one's telling the startups that, saying a buyer is going to give you an order. But really, CES is only like your product's ready. You're actually ready, trying to get into retail. You're trying to do all that stuff. A better way is if you're a startup in the early stage and you haven't figured out your product, go to CES in stealth mode. Have your business cards there. Meet with folks. Have the conversations in the hotel suite. Do a quiet, private demo to people you're trying to build a relationship with. Right? You don't have to go mainstream to still be out there, promote your business, especially in the right context. So.
CES is for people who are ready to ship.
I think that's true in a lot of cases, but I've got some early stage clients there again just to learn and educate. But yeah, if you're going to expo, if you're going to actually exhibit, then yeah, I think you got to be pretty close to prime time. But, yeah, or ship in April. Ship in April, or hey, we're going to ship in 2 months. Oh, cool. Where are you manufacturing? We're still in the CM selection process. That's not an idea, but I meet a lot of people at CES who say, I was there for 3 days and I never left the Venetian. I did meeting after meeting after meeting, and that's probably some of the behind the scenes targeted things. And hopefully on your initial intro or video call, they set the expectation of where they were, and that may have been a failure on that intro call, but then to do a targeted, one-on-one discussion with a prototype or whatever, I think it's totally fine. But yeah, you definitely have to set expectations correctly.
Well, thank you.
All right, we got time for one more question. And I know we've got a lot more questions here, but feel free to come up and talk with any of our panelists. We're going to have a lot more time for pizza and beer. I'm going to take your question real quick because you gave such beautiful input.
All right.
And that question earlier.
Okay, so you're walking down the aisle, you're getting all these flyers, all these handouts, all these keychains. We spend a lot of money on those. I want to know what sticks out in your mind, what didn't end up in the recycling bin or the trash can, kind of where we should be thinking in the future, and any good memorable collateral.
Valuable swag.
Best swag.
Best swag.
Did you take home the RV with the helicopter? Is that what you were
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm on a race for
Yeah, and I'm talking with startups too. I mean, we don't have a budget.
I don't know about you guys. I've seen less and less of the tchotchke stuff in the booths
So,
year after year.
I could answer that. I've been in the promotional advertising world for a long time. You want to select products. They don't have to be expensive, but they should be either useful or wow or have some sort of something that people will want to keep. You know what, or that might relate to your product. So, like we're doing a product that turns your smartphone into immersive binoculars. So we give out a little microfiber cloth that has all the information on it. But people can use it to clean their phone, and they'll think of us when they see it. And I have the swag here if anybody wants one.
Can I just share my favorite real quick? Does anybody remember the iMega Click Drive? One year, I've been going for a decade. There's only one I ever remember. iMega, they called it the Click Drive, and it was one of those little dog training clickers that clicked loud. And so it was memorable. I don't know if it was good or bad, but like people walk around CES, click, 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 click. You heard click, click, click,
that
click.
works.
You heard
That
click,
totally
click everywhere you went.
works.
They hand out these little clickers.
I will have to say the most valuable tchotchke they had was water and chocolate, right? I mean, that was appreciated. And so the most thing that you can get by a booth is having a conversation. Someone wants it, so that's
true. That's true. And you can
I'll
lower
give
those.
a low budget answer to that, which is the reality is if your booth is set up well and someone's interested, they'll come by and remember it. And if you're handing out flyers around people, they're not high quality leads anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And water is solid. The other one is mints, like little packs of mints because they last a while. People generally want mints because everyone's talking all the time. And so honestly, yeah, brochure, mints maybe, and water maybe, and we'll save some money.
Yeah, that's the goal. The answer is none of them. None of them, if your purpose is to get people to remember the company, not going to happen. I only have exactly one, other than like the nameless pens in my pocket. I do have, there's like a little emergency power supply where you can plug it into your iPhone one way or the other way and it's Android. And it's a third of a charge and it's super light and small, but that's what they were promoting. They were trying to sell that. I couldn't tell you the name of the company that did that. What you really want to do is get people into your booth. I disagree with you just a little bit in that if you've got people walking by, there may be people are loath to come in and talk to you. There's a lot of ground to cover. They may not know that they actually have, they're simpatico with you somehow. And so if you can use any hook to get them into the booth to start a conversation, and then start being bubbly and conversational and expressive and convincing and all the things that entrepreneurs tend to be, right? Get them talking and figure out where the match is, then you have a chance of getting a connection with someone who otherwise would have just passed you by, right? And if you've done that with your mints or your water, then you're successful.
One idea I wish people would do more of is, nobody at CES is from Vegas. We've all been away, traveling for a week, away from our families, whatever. Like, I wish people would do swag that we could take home and do something fun with. Like, I'd love to give something to my kid or wife or whatever that's just goofy. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. It's just something that's a story or whatever it may be that makes me talk about it again. I'm gonna have to buy a t-shirt in the airport or something. Anyway, you saved me a lot of time.
I remember one thing in the late 70s, a semiconductor company, it wasn't us, it was a competitor, that introduced their semiconductor product. They came out with a full, actual, real comic book. And the comic book told the story of the development of the product, how it could be useful, a couple of different application ideas. I tell you, every engineer was reading that comic book like a kid. It went over really well. It was very clever. I never saw anything like that before. They didn't fake it in any way. It was a full Superman or Batman-sized comic book with panels and bubbles and everything. Really well done.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you guys once again so much. Let's give it a